Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's tourism lesson. My name is Lumkam Tokelwa. This lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Pakama Research and Development. We are still busy with our final paper revision. Today, we are going to be looking at Section A and Section B. And remember, Section A is question 1, Section B is question 2 and 3. So Section A is 40 marks and Section B is 50 marks. That is why you see 90 marks in front of you. Now, let us look at the examination tips, grade 12 learners, which is very important for you to pay attention to because they are actually going to assist you in the exams. Grade 12 learners, under multiple choice questions, you know that you must be able to read through all options, cancel out the ones that are totally wrong. That's what you need to do. Read the other options again. Remember, you are always given A, B, C, and D. That's what we are talking about here. Decide which one is correct and do not guess. If you have studied, you are not going to guess anything, grade 12 learners, believe me. You are going to go straight to the one that is correct and answer. They might look easier, but they are not easy. They need you to read and understand before you can come to a conclusion to say you're choosing this question. And then you have questions with short answers. If you are asked those type of questions, you must make sure that you give one word only if you are asked to do so. Do not write full sentences unless you are asked to do so, because you are going to waste time if you are going to start doing that. And then you also have questions with long answers where you have to check the allocation of marks as your guide. You understand the instructions, e.g., write a paragraph under the topics given. You are not going to write a paragraph under any topic, but you're going to focus on the ones that have been given to you. And you must use the correct tourism vocabulary, which is very important. Now, this takes us to the end of our examination tips. And I want to believe, grade 12 learners, that you know how to use that question paper that is going to be in front of you. In fact, the questions that are in the question paper, how must you answer them? That is very important. Now, let us look at the structure of the final question paper. Your question paper, guys, consists of, in fact, your tourism examination consists of a 3-hour paper of 200 marks. The question paper is divided into 5 compulsory sections. So in tourism, you don't get to choose the questions, you answer everything. And then there are 10 compulsory questions. Question 1 up to question 10, and you answer everything. That is why timing yourself it becomes very important, because you don't want to go over 3 hours. Otherwise, you're not going to finish that paper. Now, remember, we've mentioned 5 sections, and we also have the topics now for each section. In section A, you have short questions, and those short questions are taken from all the topics. So it's going to be all topics here for 40 marks, and you must budget 20 marks for section A. Section B is map work and top learning, and also foreign exchange. And there is calculations involved there, guys. So you must budget your time wisely. You have 50 marks, or the section itself carries 50 marks, and you must budget 50 minutes. Section C, you are going to deal with tourist attractions, culture and heritage, tourism, and also marketing, which is also 50 marks, and you budget 50 minutes again. Section D, tourism sectors and sustainable and responsible tourism. It is only 30 marks, and you must budget 30 marks. You cannot go over 30 marks. You don't have that time. Section E is domestic, regional, and international tourism, and also communication and customer care. It also carries 30 marks, and you must budget 30 minutes. So you will, in total, you have 180 minutes, which is 3 hours. And then those 3 hours, remember, you're answering 200 marks. Now, in section A, question 1, now let us look at the type of questions here. This section will contain short questions 1.1 up to 1.5. This section covers map work, graphs, pictures, tourism logos, cartoons, infographics, and word clouds. So what are you looking at in section A? You are looking at the multiple choice, which carries 20 marks. You are looking at the matched items, column A and B, which is 5 marks. Choose the correct word from the options given in a word box. It is also 5 marks. And then you have 5 marks here. And there is another 5 marks. Maybe, but you will see the examples here. That is why it is 5, 10, 15, 20, and also this 20 marks. So it carries 40 marks. We are talking of section A. I have examples here of these questions. For an example, 1.1, the correct item in brackets, where you're supposed to give one travel document for each of the following descriptions by choosing a word from the list below. Write only the word or the words next to the question numbers. 1.2.1 up to 1.2.5 in the answer book, e.g. 1.2.6 tourist activities. Now here you have health certificate, you have a passport, PPE, tourist visa, COVID-19 test, tax certificate, transit visa, and also Schengen visa. So what is the question here? The question says a tourist will need this document to do sightseeing at a stopover city en route to the final destination. Obviously, that will be a transit visa. Remember, you can also use a transit visa for a stopover at the airport before you can proceed to the final destination. So that will be a transit visa. 1.3, choose the correct word from those given in brackets. Choose the correct word from those given in brackets. Write only the word or the words next to the question number 1.3.1 up to 1.3.5 in the answer book, e.g. 1.3.6 passport. So what are they saying here? You are given travel clinics and travel agencies. Between the two, which one offers vaccinations to tourists planning trips abroad? Obviously, guys, you never did travel agencies like in here in this topic. They were dealt with in grade 10, if you will remember. But when we're talking about the vaccinations, you are actually referring to the travel clinics. 1.3.2, preventative medication for malaria or bilharzia should be taken before visiting affected regions. You cannot talk of bilharzia, guys, because you will get bilharzia in case you swim in the destination that you are visiting. It cannot be something prior your visit to that destination. So it has to be malaria, because with malaria, you have to take the precautions before you can visit the destination. And then in question 1.4, it is an example of the matching column. So the matching items in column A and column B. So in this case, you have 1.4.1, which says Mr. Jones will declare his 50,000 rands in this channel. And then 1.4.2, it says jet fatigue is a travel-related condition caused by traveling. Now you're supposed to choose the correct answer from column B. And then if you're looking at 1.4.1, it says Mr. Jones will declare his 50,000 rand in this channel. So if a passenger is declaring, in which channel is the passenger declaring at the airport? Obviously, you declare at the red channel. We do not declare at the green channel. And then 1.4.2, jet fatigue is a travel-related condition caused by traveling. Is it traveling across many time zones? Is it traveling on a long-haul flight? Remember, with the jet fatigue, it is because you are on a long-haul flight. But when you're crossing many time zones, grade 12 learners, remember, it will be jet lag, not the jet fatigue. So you need to know those two concepts when you get to question 2 or even section A. Remember, these questions will be asked in question 2 and also in question 1. Now let's look at the example of 1.5, where you're supposed to write 5 steps in a correct order. You have given the steps, but they are not in a correct order, and you're supposed to write them in a correct order. Write the 5 steps in the correct order in the answer book. Example, step 6, posting photos on the trip on social media. But in this case, you have been given 5. Now let us go through the 5 steps that you need to write in a correct order. Number 1, buy a flight ticket. 2, do a research on the countries to be visited. Number 3, apply for a visa. Number 4, buy foreign currency. And 5, decide on the travel period. Now, if you're looking at these steps, grade 12 learners, which one do you think comes first? Which one follows up until you get to the last one? So how can you arrange them in a correct order? I will give you 2 minutes. Can you quickly arrange them so that when we get to the answers, you are able to mark yourself? Grade 12 learners, all you had to do was just to rearrange these steps. Now let's get to the answers or the solutions and see how best have you answered these steps. Number 1, the first thing that you do when you are planning to go on a holiday, grade 12 learners, you do a research on the country or countries to be visited. There's no way you can apply for a visa without knowing where you are going to. So you do a research on the countries or the country to be visited. Secondly, you decide on the travel period. For how long are you going to be there? Because now once you know the travel period, when you book the accommodation, you know exactly how many nights you are going to need in the country that you are visiting. Then you must buy a flight ticket or book an accommodation because already you have the dates. And then you must apply for a visa. Remember, you cannot apply for a visa without booking an accommodation because you need to attach the address of the accommodation when you apply for a visa. And also they want to see the flight ticket. They also want to see the confirmation of your accommodation reservation. So then you can go and apply for a visa. Once you have, once the visa, you know that I am going to go to this country, definitely sure, then you can buy foreign currency. What if you buy a foreign currency and the visa is going to be denied? You won't even get to that country. Already you have bought the foreign currency. So these are the steps, and these are some of the questions that you can expect in section A of your question paper, grade 12 learners. And you can see now they are taken from different topics. In this case, I've only focused on section B, but these are going to be asked from all the topics that you have done in tourism. Now let us move to section B. Remember, I said to you, section B will be question 2 and question 3. So question 2 is map work and tour planning. That is question 2. Map work and tour planning, and foreign exchange is question 3, but you are going to deal with it. Question 2, map work and tour planning. What is it that you need to know for this topic, for this question, sorry? You must know how to compile a day-to-day itinerary. You must know the world time zones and the calculations of these world time zones. You must study the topic of the customs regulations. I'm not sure if you still remember that topic, grade 12 learners. It is where you are doing the red channel, the green channel, the wines, the cigarettes, or the prohibited goods, the duty-free goods, all that content. It was dealt with under customs regulations. Compiling a tour budget, and also health and safety precautions, and also travel documents. Remember, you did under health, you did the different diseases like your malaria, your yellow fever, your health certificate, WHO, which is World Health Organization. You did the precautions of these diseases. What is it that you must take for malaria before you visit the destination, and what are the symptoms? So there's a lot that you did under health. And also under safety precautions, remember, you did safety in the car, safety at the airport, safety in the dark, safety in the car. When you're walking alone, what is it that you need to do? You need to walk where there are people. So there's a lot that was done again under the safety precautions that you can give to the tourists. And then we did travel documents, the types of passports, the types of visas, the Schengen visa. So all of those were dealt with under question 2. So there's a lot. That is why you see that section B actually counts more marks. It is because of these topics that you see here. And you need, as the subtopics, sorry guys, and you need to study all of them so that you get those marks in section B, question 2. And then section B consists of 2 questions I've already mentioned. It is question 2, map work and tour planning, and question 3, foreign exchange. And both questions, the total is 50 marks. Now, we are still on question 2. According to page 8 of the examination guidelines, this is the content you need to know under the topic map work and tour planning, but some of the things I've already mentioned them. You need to know tour plans and route planning, compiling a day-by-day itinerary, compiling a tour budget. You must know health precautions, I've already mentioned, the safety precautions, travel documentation, world time zones and calculations of world times when traveling between countries. So all that content is what you need to know under question 2, section B. And then there is important terminology that you need to know again in the same question. The following concepts of terminology are very important when it comes to map work and tour planning, as they feature in almost each and every question paper. You must know the concept of itinerary, World Health Organization, vaccination, compulsory vaccinations, recommended vaccinations. They like this question. They're actually trying to test you. Do you know the difference between recommended vaccinations and also compulsory vaccinations? Remember, the compulsory one, compulsory means it is a must to do. You have to take those compulsory vaccinations. And in this case, we usually talk of a compulsory vaccination for yellow fever. After getting that, obviously you are going to, after getting vaccinated for yellow fever, you will get a health certificate. So that one is compulsory. Malaria precautions, you need to know them. Valid passport, the types of passports, you need to know all the types of passports that you did in class grade 12. And also, you must know the visa. What is a visa? What is it used for? And then you must know the types of these visas. Health certificate, travel clinic, international driver's permit or an IDP, duty-free goods, prohibited goods, restricted goods. What is the difference between these type of goods? So you need to study that content. And also, what is a red channel and what happens when you are in a red channel? What is to declare and where do you declare? Do you declare in a red channel or in a green channel? Daylight saving time and its advantages. Time zones. Steps to follow when doing time zone calculations. Remember those steps that I used to do with you grade 12 learners. The jet lag, its symptoms and how to minimize it, how to minimize jet lag and how do you get it and what are the symptoms of it. The jet fatigue, what is the difference between the jet fatigue and the jet lag? The international date line or an IDL, what is that? Where is it located on the map? Remember, it is located on 180-degree line of longitude. But what is it used for? It is the one that is telling you that you are now reaching a new day or you are going back to the previous day. That is the IDL that is actually telling you that. And then you have section B still. The questions, now we need to check the questions that you might expect. So learners are reminded of the content done for question 2. Now, the Summer Olympics took place in Paris, France, from 26 to 11 August 2024. Apart from London, Paris is the second city that had the opportunity to host the Olympic Games 3 times. Now, this is just an example of a question that you might expect, in fact, in question 2. Now, let us go to 2.1. Read the information above and answer the questions that follow. 2.1.1. Calculate the time difference between London and Paris at the time of the Olympic Games. Remember, grade 12 learners, I would always say to you, before you can start with any calculation, you need to identify the 2 cities. You need to go back to the steps. So the step number 1 is saying, identify the 2 cities that you are going to be calculating here. So you will have London and Paris. Already you have the 2 cities. And then you need to identify their time zones. So the time zone for London without the DST is 0. The time zone for Paris without a DST is +1. But remember, you are told that you calculate the time difference between London and Paris at the time of the Olympic Games. And at the time of the Olympic Games, both cities were practicing daylight saving time or DST. So now that is why you see that London is now on a +1. Why is it on a +1? It is well explained there to say it applies DST. And also Paris, originally, it is on a +1. But during the effective period of the DST, it is on a +2. So what is the time difference here? It is 1 hour. Why is it 1 hour? Because if you're subtracting 1 from 2, you will get 1. So that is the difference that we're actually calculating between London and Paris. Grade 12 learners, I always say to you, if you cannot go on with the whole calculation that might be given to you, at least you must be able to arrive in this step so that you get your 2 marks or your 3 marks out of 5 if it is 5 marks. And then what is the question now for 2.1.2? It says, explain one way in which the team members had to adjust their watches upon arrival in Paris. So what are we talking about here now? We are still talking about the DST or the daylight saving time. The team had to adjust their watches 1 hour forward. Why 1 hour forward? You can see Paris is on a +2 and London is on a +1. So obviously you will adjust 1 hour forward. And then now let us look at section B, question 3. What are the things that you need to know? What are the objectives here? What is it that you need to know for question 3? There is quite a lot of things that you need to know for question 3, guys. First of all, you need to be able to convert the major currencies to a South African rand or a South African rand into major currencies. And there is no way you are going to miss that, grade 12 learners. When you get to question 3, you know that you're only answering foreign exchange. You cannot go into that exam without knowing how to convert a South African rand into the major currencies or major currencies into the South African rand. The other thing that is important for you to know in question 3 is to be able to differentiate the BBR and the BSR, bank buying rate and the bank selling rate. And also gross domestic product and its impact to the South African economy. Remember, gross domestic product in short is known as the GDP. You have that content in your book. And then the concept of a strong and the weak rand, you need to know that in question 3. Reasons of the impact of currency fluctuation. When the currencies are fluctuating, what are the impacts of that to the economy of the country? The multiplier effect and its link to the GDP. We are going to look at this in more detail in the next slides. But what I'm trying to say to you is that I am reminding you of the content that you need to study under question 3. The conversions, guys, there's no way you are going to have question 3 without converting. Maybe some of the questions they might choose between these subtopics here. But you need to study all of them because you don't know which one is going to be in the exam. So you must study everything for question 3. And then the important terminology, grade 12 learners, that is important again for question 3. Let us look at GDP, which is the value of all goods and services produced within a country in a year. The reason I've given you the explanations of these concepts or terminology, it is because our learners are finding it difficult to answer question 3 using these concepts. The only thing they know is that you will be able to convert. You are not only converting, guys, in question 3, but there is also important terminology that you need to know and you might be able to discuss if you know it in the like in question 3. Benefits of GDP growth to SA economy. Income generation. These are the answers, guys. You need to study this. Income generation, employment or job creation, infrastructure development, skills development. Multiplier effect. When money spent by tourists filters down the economy, benefiting employees and other businesses. That is what you're talking about when you are explaining the multiplier effect. You might be given an example of the multiplier effect. And then you have now the multiplier effect and its link to the GDP, whereby we're saying the value of expenditure is multiplied and has a positive effect, economic effect. Money spent in a particular area helps create jobs, and the jobs in turn, they create demand for other products and services in the local economy. So what I'm trying to say here is that if the question is going to say, discuss the multiplier effect and its link to the GDP, you are going to look at these points and discuss. That is why I've given you this. And then you have the buying power of the rand, whereby you are saying the buying power of the rand is the amount of foreign currency you can buy with your rand is referred to as the buying power of the rand. So if maybe a South African tourist is visiting another country and exchanges the South African rand, how much money are you going to get? Obviously, if that currency is stronger than a rand, you are going to get less rands. And then if the rand can buy a lot of other currencies, we say the rand is what? the rand is strong in relation to other currencies. If the rand can buy a little or a particular currency, we say the rand is weak in relation to a particular currency. So this is the information that you need to know, especially under the buying power of the rand. Now, there is that concept of a strong and a weak rand, grade 12 learners. If the rand is strong, the foreign tourists will receive less rands for their currency. Foreign tourists will have less money to spend. Only if the rand is strong. You're always confusing this. Inbound tourists will visit for a shorter period. Tourism will contribute less to the SA's GDP, and the economy will decline, and this can lead to job losses. All of these grade 12 learners, they can only happen when the rand is strong. And what happens when the rand is weak? More inbound tourists will visit South Africa. Foreign tourists get more rand for their currency. Foreign tourists have more money to spend during their visit. Foreign tourists will visit for longer periods, increase to the GDP. All of these will happen when the rand is weak. And in tourism, when the rand is weak, we know that we're making more money because we're receiving more tourists. We are not saying the rand must be weak, but we are saying in tourism, it is actually a benefit to us. And then there is a concept rate with it, which is the bank, the BSR, which is the rate at which the bank sells foreign currency. Here, guys, we're always focusing on the foreign currency and also the perspective of a bank. It is a bank that is using this rate to sell the foreign currency. And then the bank buying rate, the rate at which the bank buys foreign currency. Currency rate sheet is what you are going to be given. In question 3, it is going to have the name of the country and sometimes the name of the currency, maybe the symbol of the currency, the BBR and the BSR. So you cannot calculate any foreign exchange in question 3 if you do not have a currency rate sheet. And then when you're converting foreign currency into a rand, you always multiply by the exchange rate. When you're converting a rand, you always divide by an exchange rate. I'm just reminding you guys. So you only divide your rand and you multiply any strange currencies that are not used in your country. And then here, the effect of exchange rates on international tourism. If the rand is strong, outbound tourists, what is going to happen, in fact, to the outbound tourists, which are the South Africans now who are visiting other countries? South African outbound tourists will be more likely to travel to international destinations when the rand is strong. Outbound travel will be more affordable. Like South Africans, at least now will have a chance of visiting other countries. And then when it comes to the inbound tourists, South Africa will be regarded as an expensive destination because the rand is strong. I've already mentioned that, grade 12 learners. I'm just reminding you about question 3. And then in 3.1, remember, I'm just giving you the question that you might expect for question 3. The gross domestic product is one of the main indicators to measure the wealth of a country. Explain the concept gross domestic product. So gross domestic product is a measure of all goods and services produced domestically over a specific time, usually a year. That is the gross domestic product. 3.1.2, discuss 2 ways how the hosting of the Olympic Games contributed to an increase in the GDP of France. Remember, it happened in Paris, but now we want to know the benefits of that. Now, let us look at 3.1.2, where you're supposed to discuss 2 ways how the hosting of the Olympic Games contributed to an increase in the GDP of France. The Olympic Games brought many tourists to France, resulting in an increase in foreign income earnings. You see? So many tourists, they visited France, and that resulted in foreign income earnings. Secondly, the tourists made use of tourism products and services which generated income. Obviously, if they are going to book for accommodation, they book for transport, they are going to use the restaurants. So obviously that is going to generate an income. Anything that they will sell to the tourists is going to generate an income. The multiplier effect was set into motion and also increased employment opportunities, improved standard of living of the local people, and infrastructural development. So those are the benefits of hosting a global event like this one. So you know, grade 12, you know the benefits, you know the advantages, you know the disadvantages, you know everything. This is just to remind you of the things that we did. And then grade 12 learners, I have a homework for you whereby you're supposed to refer to the information below and answer the questions that follow. Each South African team member had 50,000 rand spending money for the trip to the Summer Olympic Games in Paris. They exchanged their rands at the OR Tambo International Airport before their flight to Paris. Now, this is the currency rate sheet I was referring to. So now the currency rate sheet in front of you has got the name of the currency. In this case, we have British pound and a euro. And then we have the bank buying rate and the bank selling rate. The bank buying rate at 23.66 rand for the British pound. And for the euro, it is 20.52 rand. Bank selling rate is 23.68 rand. And for the euro, it is 20.55 rand. Now, what you're supposed to do in this homework, grade 12 learners, you're supposed to give the currency code for the following currencies. 1.1.1, the currency code for British pound, currency code for the euro, and then in 1.2, you're supposed to convert the 50,000 rand into euros. Remember, you have been given the bank buying rate and the bank selling rate. You know which currency to divide, you know which currency to multiply. And then in 1.3, one of the team members had 75,000 euros left upon his arrival in South Africa. Calculate the amount in rand. So you can see in this homework, you will be converting a South African rand into a major currency and converting a major currency into a rand. So what is it that you need to do? What are the rules that you're supposed to apply here for you to be able to get your marks? So remember, if you are going to do this homework alone, you will be able to answer question 3 in the exam, grade 12 learners. And then this is our summary. Remember, we've done question 2 and also, section B. Question 2 was map work and top learning. You know that section B has got 2 topics. The first topic is map work and top learning, and the second topic is foreign exchange. So under map work and top learning, we have spoken about compiling a day-to-day itinerary. We have spoken about the world time zones, the customs regulations, health and safety precautions, and travel documents. We have also spoken about compiling a tour budget, and that will be map work and top learning. And then under question 3, we have spoken about converting of major currencies to South African rand and South African rand to major currencies, differentiate between the BBR and the BSR, or the bank buying rate and the bank selling rate, gross domestic product and its impact to the South African economy, the concept strong and the weak rand, reasons of the impact of currency fluctuation, and also the multiplier effect and its effect to the GDP. So this is the content that you need to study grade 12 learners for section B. Remember, section B is only question 1 and question 2 for 90 marks, and you cannot afford to lose those marks. Our next lesson is going to be focusing again on the final paper revision, because that's what we are doing now, grade 12 learners. And guys, this takes us to the end of our lesson for today. And the lesson was brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Phakama Research and Development. My name is Lumka Mgcotyelwa, grade 12 learners. Goodbye.